guys, this is lesson 8-7. In the book it's called Solving ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. I call it factoring using the AC method, or just carrying on the conversation of factoring, but this time when a equals something other than 1. Let's jump right in and look at the steps we need to follow. Let's start with 7x squared plus 29x plus 4. And when we're looking at this ax squared plus bx plus c, in this case a is 7, b is 29, and c is 4. And so what we're going to start by doing here is we're going to multiply a times c. And a times c in this case is 7 times 4. In all the cases before this lesson, there was a 1 where that 7 is, and we didn't have to take into account a number there, but now we do. So we are going to do 7 times 4. 7 times 4 is 28. And now what we're going to do is we're going to grab the factors of 28. 1 times 28, 2 times 14, not 3, but 4 times 7. I think we've got them all. We are looking for which of these pairs not only multiplies to be 28, but adds together to be 29. And so we can look at these two guys right here, 1 and 28. And instead of writing out the binomials, here's where we have to do an extra step. Excuse me. We're going to rewrite our equation, 7x squared, and then we're going to use our pair of numbers here, plus 1x plus 28x plus 4. Take a look at what we just did. We just rewrote 29x to be 1x plus 28x. So we didn't change a whole lot, but we made this into 4 different monomials instead of 3. We split it apart because what we're going to do next is we are going to actually factor by grouping. So when we have it written out as 4 things, what we're going to do is throw parentheses around the first 2 and throw parentheses around the second 2. Okay, I know this is a whole extra little piece that's different than the last lesson, but this allows us to do this without going crazy with a lot of trial and error factoring. This is very predictable, and if you do it this way, it will always work if it's factorable. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this first little set of parentheses and look for a common factor. I can see that 7x squared and 1x have x in common, so I'm factoring out the x, and then I need to figure out what's left behind. If I take an x out of 7x squared, 7x is left because x times 7x is 7x squared. And if I take an x out of 1x, what's going to happen is I have a 1 left behind because x times 1 is x. All right? Keep your plus sign there because we haven't made this a multiplication problem yet. Look at the second set of numbers. Between 28x and 4, the only thing that's common is the number 4. So we're going to factor out the 4. 4 times 7x gives me 28x. You can just keep multiplying back to calculate these things and to check yourself. And if I factor a 4 out of 4, what I'm going to do is have a 1 left behind. Now, you can see that something very interesting happened. I have 7x plus 1, and I have 7x plus 1. It's the same. That was actually our goal, and so as you're doing these problems, you can kind of look for that to happen. What we're going to do now is looking at this set of multiplication plus this set of multiplication, the common factor is 7x plus 1. Can you see that? Looking at this, x times 7x plus 1, and looking at this, 4 times 7x plus 1, the common factor between these two things is 7x plus 1. So we're going to take that little set in parentheses, write out, factor it out, and then in parentheses we're going to leave behind what we would normally leave behind when we factor. So we have factored out this, and notice what's left, x plus 4. X plus 4 is left behind. All right, we have actually factored into two binomials, just like we would have done with a simpler problem in the last lesson. So let's check this with FOIL. 7x times x is 7x squared. 7x plus 4 is 28x. 1 times x is x, or 1x. And 1 times 4 is 4. So we can combine our outer and inner and get 7x squared plus 29x plus 4. All right, this is called AC factoring because of the multiplying times a times c and the little bit of extra work in the middle. Don't neglect that. Believe me, this saves you over time. The other method for factoring like this is to just come up with factors of 7, come up with factors of 4, and trial and error, put them in the right place until it actually works. It's crazy. So let's practice the AC method again. Let's do 3x squared minus 17x plus 20. All right, this time we're going to start. Here is A and here is C. I'm going to multiply those together. 3 times 20 is 60, and I need to get factors of 60. So 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, 6 and 10. Boy, this guy has a lot of friends, right? Not 7, 8, 9, and then I think I'm going to repeat myself. Probably one of our pairs of numbers is what we want. It's there anyway. All right, when I multiply, it makes a positive. So I could have positive times positive, but when I add, it makes a negative. And so what I'm going to have is a negative times a negative makes a positive. So both of my numbers are going to be negative. It matters when I add them together. I am now looking for the ones that add up to be negative 17. So right here they are negative 5 and negative 12. All right, remember at this point I need to rewrite. Don't get confused and think we're done factoring. I need to rewrite the equation. 3x squared, I'm just going to change up this guy to be minus 5x minus 12x plus 20. Notice that this part is just a rewriting of the negative 17x into two parts so that I can factor by grouping. So I'm going to throw on some parentheses. I'm going to go ahead, I don't really like to leave a minus between, so I'm going to go plus a negative here. That's fine like that, and I want that negative included inside the parentheses so that I can show you how to make this come out right. All right, looking at the first set, 3x squared minus 5x, the only thing common is an x, so let's factor that out. And then notice you can go back and check. X times 3x is 3x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. All right. And then here's the hint. In my second set, I really want it to be 3x minus 5. And so what could I take out of there that would not only leave behind the 3 and the 5, but also leave behind a negative? I can factor out a negative 4, minus 4. Now watch what happens. Negative 4 times 3x gives me negative 12x, and negative 4 times negative 5 gives me positive 20. So I'm doing great. All right, what do I do next? I look here at this common factor that I have created. It's awesome, and I'm going to write it first, 3x minus 5, and then I need to look at what's left behind. There's x and minus 4. So make this disappear from your sight and just look at what's left, x minus 4. That becomes times because we factored out the 3x minus 5, x minus 4. And I can use FOIL and check that so that I can see if I did it right. 3x squared minus 12x minus 5x, that would make negative 17x, and negative 5 times negative 4 is positive 20. All right, let's do another example. 3x squared minus 17x plus, that's the one we just did, sorry. Let me jump to the next example. Four x squared minus 3x plus 5. Okay, what happens if I try to factor this and it's not working? Let's just start it. A times C is 20, and I'm going to grab my factors of 20. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. And positive times positive is positive, but negative times negative is also positive, and that would make sense because I need a negative 3. So I have to make both of these negative. And I have negative 21, negative 12, and negative 9. None of that are negative 3. So what has happened is this is a prime trinomial, and it cannot be factored. This does happen. All right, what can we do with our factoring? We can use it as a technique for solving. Here's an equation, h equals negative 16t squared plus vt plus h sub 0. That's interesting, isn't it? It's because it's a word problem, and it says this: suppose a cheetah pouncing on an antelope leaps with an initial upward velocity of 19 feet per second. 19 feet per second. That's my initial velocity. And how long is the cheetah in the air if it lands on the antelope's hindquarter 3 feet from the ground? Okay, so we're going to plug in a few numbers here, and initial velocity is actually going to be this little guy right here. Whenever we see these equations, this is time. The question asked us about how long is the cheetah in the air, so we're looking for time. Our initial velocity is 19 times t, plus what is our initial height? The cheetah jumped right off the ground to pounce on the antelope. So it jumped like this, and so we will say that the initial height was 0. And the other thing that we can plug in is when it tackled the cheetah in the air, it was still 3 feet up. And we want to know what time that happened. So we're going to put in 3 for the height. All right, so we have 3 equals 16t squared plus 19t. And we're going to, just like we did in the last lesson, we want this to equal 0. So we're going to subtract 3, and we're going to end up with 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 19t minus 3. If we can factor this into 0 equals parentheses binomial times parentheses binomial, we'll have two things that we can equal 0 and solve. So let's try factoring this. So we have to do negative 16 times positive 3, negative 16 times positive 3, negative 16 times negative 3, don't know why I said that, 48, positive 48, so let's get factors of 48, 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12, not 5, but 6 and 8, and then I think we're going to be repeating ourselves. And what we want to do is actually get rid of the -1. We can do this. Let's just divide everything by -1. Okay, we're going to divide everything by -1. That actually doesn't change anything here. We're still going to have 0 equals 16t squared minus 19t and plus 3. All right, so that didn't really change anything with our factors. We do need to rewrite, and we need to look for the factors that equal -19. That means we're going to have to make them both negative because they're supposed to make a +48. So everything's negative, and we can use this guy right here, and we're going to rewrite. 0 equals 16t squared minus 3t minus 16t plus 3. We just rewrote the -19 as that, and we're going to, I'm going to go like that just so I don't get confused with that negative in my factoring. Look at that, they're very similar. Common factor here is a t, and we're going to leave behind 16t minus 3, and then we need to make this negative so we can see that we are going to just factor out a 1, -1, and we're going to have a +16t minus 3 left behind. Okay, looking at this, we can see this common factor that we're going to factor out. 0 equals 16t minus 3 times what's left behind after we factor that out. You can see the t minus 1. Then we have two things to equal 0. 16t minus 3 equals 0, and t minus 1 equals 0. So let's go ahead and solve these little equations. Got kind of an icky fraction here, but that's fine. This is time in seconds. And then we're going to add 1 and get time equals 1. So there's 2 times that the cheetah is 3 feet off the ground. Once at 3/16 of a second and once at 1 second. So what's happened is, here's the cheetah's leap, okay? Means the cheetah's gotten higher than 3 feet. This is the antelope, right? So at 3/16 of a second, the cheetah was here, but it kept going up, and then it tackled the antelope here at 1 second. And the cheetah actually was only in the air for 1 second before it landed on the antelope. That's how we do that one. All right, let me wrap this up with just one more in case you are confused in any way. Go ahead and pause the video, see if you can factor that one. If you can factor it, you know you're doing pretty well. Then turn it back on and you can see me do it and confirm how you're doing. Okay, AC factoring, we're going to go 3 times 10 is 30. We're going to factor the 30, 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, and we're looking for something that equals positive 17, so that's that. Next step is the rewrite, don't forget it. We're going to say 3x squared plus 2x plus 15x plus 10. This is the part we rewrote right here. And then we're going to throw parentheses on our 2 pairs. See if there's anything common that we can factor out. Just an x. I'll have 3x plus 2. Go ahead and use the distributive property if you can't see that. And then over here in the last part, we're going to factor out a 5. And that leaves behind a 3x plus 2. Pretty cool. Now we can see that we have common factor to factor out right there. 3x plus 2. And what's left behind is x plus 5 to put in the other parentheses. We can use the distributive property to check this and see if we are right. All right, happy practicing. Let me know what questions you still have.